The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to We Are the People with Tracy Marks and Jorge Estamba, who ask you to know what's happening with your student loan. Tracy and Jorge keep a deep look at student loans in this country and the industries that surround it. Every week, We Are the People will bring you new insight into the corporate welfare industry, such as bailouts, and they connect with student loans. The show will highlight on your constitutional rights and how the current system is built to infringe upon them. Join the conversation by visiting our website chat room at wearethepeople.tv. Or call the show at 888-565-1470 and let us hear from you. And now, let's tune in to Tracy and Jorge for this week's discussion.
Hello and welcome to We Are the People, Students for Liberty. Jorge Estamba will not be with us today, but he will be back next week. But what we have done this week is we have re-invited Todd Clapp back to the station to talk about his company, WeFixYourStudentLoans.com. Correct? And then with us also is Rick Strahl, and the reason we did that is because if you've been watching the show for any length of time, you've seen Rick here as a semi-regular. Rick actually has student debt issues also, even though he's a professor and a professional and an attorney and all these different things. You know, this hits people of all classes, and it is an issue for the economy in general, not just the individual that's struggling. So Todd has come back. We had him on briefly a couple of weeks ago, but we wanted to go a little bit more into things, get a little bit more into the information on student loans. As you know, this is my issue. Jorge is a big proponent for MoveOn.org, and he talks a lot about corporate welfare, which fits hand in hand with this issue. But today we're going to focus strictly on Todd's business, and he's going to give us a lot of information on what to look for, what to be aware of, and of course he will be presenting his company for help. The reason that I have chosen Todd is, for one reason, he actually wanted to talk about this issue. There are so many of these different kind of companies that are cropping up, and they take advantage of so many people that are in student loan debt, and they charge them money, and you know, it can be a very bad situation or a very good situation depending on the company. So with that, Todd, tell us a little bit about you, a little bit more about you and your background, and what made you decide to do what you're doing now.
Okay, well, like I said, previously I got out of law school and I worked for several law firms, and we initially worked for a lot of foreclosure defense law firms, which exposed a lot of what the banks were doing, taking advantage of consumers, the fleecing of America,
yes,
as they say. And you know, we took an in-depth look at a lot of these files, and were able to expose both the legal shortcuts and any other shortcuts the banks would take to take advantage of the homeowners.
Right.
And then thereafter I also worked for a consumer law firm which specialized in credit card defense. So those two kind of things went kind of hand in hand, and then I, like I said, lastly, before I started my own business, worked for a law firm that did both loan modification, foreclosure defense, and student loan consolidation.
Now you have student loan debt yourself, correct?
Correct.
Is it a large amount?
Yeah, 90,000.
Okay. Well, I'm at that myself, and of course that is not what I originally borrowed, but that is what I owe. So you're actually in pretty good shape right now.
Well, I mean, it's
all things
haven't
considered.
had really a chance to grow yet, considering I just recently got out of school. So
well, thank God. Right?
Mine has.
Yeah. Now you went to law school as well,
I did,
and your loans have grown.
and has done me powerfully little good in the long run.
So yes, well, you know, sometimes they say it's who you know, but you know, who you know could be the person you meet today or tomorrow. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have an ongoing journaling, so kind of a live video journaling of what's going on with Rick's case with you, if that's
Like a
all
case
right.
study.
Yes, a case study, exactly. So we're going to do that. Now, I have private loans, so I'm a little different. We may go into something a little bit different with Todd after that. But for right now, let's get into the basic information that people need to know when they start getting in trouble with their student loans. So now the government has guaranteed the loans. So if you don't pay them, that they'll have to pay them.
That's correct.
Okay. Talking to the mic. All right, so what do you think is, just start it off, what you think is the most important thing that a person needs to know about that?
Well, I guess to begin with, you need to make a decision. You need to be on top of it. We have a lot of people who have the ostrich syndrome. A lot of our clients are procrastinators, are people who just ignored it and thought it would go away. And it's a daily battle that we have trying to help them help themselves.
They
Get out of
also
the way.
have other things to do in life. You know, they've got families, they've got basic living stuff. They try to find jobs, and it makes it very difficult.
Absolutely, and well, I mean, we were speaking today, and you know, you have a hierarchy of what you want to spend your money on, and you know, first thing is going to probably be, you know, rent, food, and shelter.
Yeah, you got to have those.
You know, and then you
Especially if you have kids.
yeah, and then you have gas and food, obviously, and you know, where the student loan payment comes in, you know, near the bottom. You know, you have to get the essentials first.
Yet a lot of these companies will talk you into making a student loan payment over your rent, and people have actually lost their homes and different things like that. For, you know, there's a lot of case studies out there on that.
Well, I mean, I would think that I don't know personally of any of those cases, but I mean, I would think that
Hello. Whose phone is that?
it's in my bag.
Okay. Well, we're going to have a little music in the background right now, and we're going to keep on keeping on. So let me ask you this before we go on. Now, you were talking about you had been involved with mortgage and also with credit
Consumer
cards. Okay, so consumer credit, obviously, you got into this because as consumers, this has become a big issue, and we have elections coming up in 2016. But what I noticed when I was doing my research is all the banks that were behind the whole mortgage issue and the credit cards, those are the same people that are holding the cards for the student loan industry as well.
Well, I mean, certainly. Well, there was a lot. There was, you know, a house of cards that fell. You know, Goldman Sachs, all that. You know, a lot of. We'll never know really what happened there, but certainly, I mean, you know, there's private institutions, and you know, there's other people that that lent money. I mean, so
And
the banking industry is behind it for sure.
Those private institutions and the banks were responding to what Congress told them to do and to the influence that they personally had on Congress through lobbying.
Correct. And then the end consumer, the students, were thereafter, you know, went to school on these available programs, or these, you know, they were incentivized, or well, I don't know if they were really incentivized, but they were induced to, you know, go to school, borrow this money on the hopes of coming out and obviously
Making a decent salary.
Correct.
The institutions themselves sold them on the fact that once they got this degree, there are these wonderful jobs out there that are well paying that they will be able to get.
Well, you know.
Well, that's an interesting. Absolutely, there's a lot of. I mean, there are some cases where the institutions themselves, you know, were involved in maybe a type of what we call self-dealing, and you know, some of these were set up as, some were frauds and some were maybe just greedy people, but where they've actually, you know, where they were actually, you know, trying to sign people up to school. It became a business.
It is
to
a
sign
business,
people
yeah.
up to go to school because they could make money with that. And I mean, and there's a whole range, obviously, from like I said, from complete fraud all the way up to people who do it correctly.
To do a good job, right. I mean, and that's the thing is, you know, you can have a great experience even at a for-profit school, no matter what kind of, you are in charge of what you get out of it. However, there does come a point when you have to do something when things are not going right. And of course, this has turned into a money-making business. So now the people need to get a handle on this. So now one of the things that that you would probably want to do with your loans, if you haven't already, is consolidation.
Correct. Well, so along the lines of what we were just speaking about, which is that if you run in there's times when you may not want to consolidate.
Okay, let's go over that.
And those are, when you consolidate the loans, you're taking all your loans, and the Department of Education is paying off those loans and giving you one new loan. That they are the institution lending you the money now, which is in fact mostly what they are already, because they've guaranteed the loans to begin with. So
Regardless.
either way, they're on the hook for them. So at least this way, they can kind of bring them back in-house and take a little more control over it. But there are certain circumstances where you would not want to do that. When you create this new loan, it becomes a new loan, so you lose certain rights that you'd have under your old loans.
Like what?
Well, for instance, if you anything, for instance, any deferment or forbearance options you had on your new loans don't apply under your old loans, no longer apply under your new loans.
So you won't be able to consolidate or you won't be able to defer at all once you do this?
No, what happens is you just lose. Say that you have a certain number of months of deferment that you're allowed. Under the new program, they actually give you 30 months that you can use over the life of the loan. Which is typically when people come to us, they've already used up all their deferment,
right.
So it's not really an issue. But and if you are if you've just come out of school or you're coming out of school, and you get the automatic 6-month stay from when you get out of school, you can actually still consolidate your loans and set the consolidation date to be a date effective 6 months from now.
Oh.
So you can actually still do it now, get it out of the way when you have the time and the money, if you choose to hire us to do it.
Okay, so you take care of that kind of thing for them.
Well, no, they didn't. It's available to anybody. They can do it. The department.
Right, they can do it themselves, but your company, as part of your service, you do that. Will you do the consolidation for people, or do you have them go ahead and do it themselves?
No. We'll help. We help them get through all the paperwork.
Okay.
And do it. And no, it's just an option. But everybody has that option as to when they want the deferment to come into place, whether it be immediately in the 30 to 60 day period, or if they want to wait 6 months for it to come into place, they can do that. So people don't have to wait. They can still use up the rest of their deferment under the old program and get it. So that would be one instance where you may not want to consolidate. The other one is if you have certain rights there's certain instances where you can cancel your student loans.
Okay.
Now these are under circumstances where you borrowed money and your school closed within 120 days after you left there. For certain circumstances, if someone started up a institution that was maybe shut down afterwards because of what we spoke about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
In other circumstances, you may already qualify for forgiveness. So there's no need under either under the teachers forgiveness program or under the public service program, in which case you'd want to take advantage of that before you consolidate it.
Now, those programs are relatively limited in the size or the amount that can be forgiven, are they not?
Correct. The teacher program, right off the top of my head, gives you between $5,000 and $17,500 available to you for 5 consecutive years of service.
Each year you get that amount?
No,
or that's
total.
a total amount,
That's a
which
total
really isn't very much.
No.
Yeah, it's I would.
It's something.
It's better than nothing. I'm not complaining, but And
I presume, I would hope that most teachers would know about this, and the schools do a job of educating their their faculty. But
well, unfortunately, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And I know when my son was in elementary school, several of the teachers that had been teaching for like 5-6 years, they were in trouble with their student loans. They just were not making enough, even though they were getting a certain partial forgiveness. With the way the interest accrues, especially if for whatever reason, if they had a sickness in the family, they would have to put it in forbearance or deferment, and once they've used that all up, like you said,
Correct.
then all that, what happens if you're not familiar with it, once you put your loans in deferment or forbearance, all that interest that accrues is then added to your principal. So now you are paying interest on a new higher principal, correct?
Correct.
Which that's where people are getting into trouble.
Well, somewhat like the housing industry on the pick-a-pay loans or the other loans where you were actually not paying interest-only loans, which is steadily gaining, and you're steadily raising your debt instead of paying it off.
Right. So, government loans are better in the respect that they will work with you more. Now, I haven't been able to touch my government loans because I've been working on my private loans, and I thought that was the smart thing to do because they grow so much faster. Now, although I've kept them in check, now I'm in a position where I can't anymore.
Right.
So then, and they offer programs. They have some good programs, but it's like they won't give them to you.
The private. Well,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some change in the wind in the next few years
I hope
regarding that. I
so.
think they'll follow the federal. Some of the stuff the federal.
Now,
programs will help.
tell us your website, Todd, and you have a frequently asked questions segment on your website, correct?
correct,
So why don't
yeah.
you go ahead and give us your address and your phone number, even though it's up on the screen, just so.
No problem. It's wefixyourstudentloans.com, and our web call-in number is 954 425 6105. Sorry, 954-425-6105. And you can call and talk to one of the loan counselors. They'll review all your loans with you. If you don't know how to figure out your loans, and they'll walk you through getting your FAFSA PIN established, give you your PIN, so you can then go back in and
So they'll
review them
actually
on your
help
own.
you get your PIN and everything.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, do they do this over the phone, or do people come into your office? How does that work?
It's typically over the phone.
Okay.
We can give them, we give them a consultation. We're able to do a go-to meeting if they want to see some of the stuff in writing, and if they're more of a visual person. But typically over the phone, we'll give them a summary of where of the loans, what their interest rate are. When you consolidate, you actually change to a fixed interest rate.
And that's one of the advantages of it.
Yes.
Okay, because with the others, they fluctuate so often. I know I
Correct.
had mine were fluctuating anywhere from 9.25 to 14 point something.
Correct.
So, yeah, that was quite helpful to consolidate and do that. But now, if you have some loan that may be almost all paid off, you wouldn't want to consolidate that in, because then it's going to be, won't that?
It doesn't. At the end, it doesn't really matter. It's a weighted average of the loans. You're going to have to. You're going to pay. You're paying a total amount anyway. So it's, it really doesn't matter that much one way or the other. In the end, it
Okay.
comes out to be a wash.
So, what other advantages what other advantages are there to consolidation that we haven't went over yet?
Well, again, the advantage is you're not going to get the big thing that, as we were mostly kind of getting to earlier, was that a lot of these people, they're in trouble, and they don't realize what the end result can be here. And one of our new loan counselors that actually spent a lot of time helping people, and he talked about the weight, both physically and mentally, that being in debt does to you.
Yes, there's a huge weight.
And that was, so he really came in and he wanted to help people, and he understood that, having been there himself as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we're all coming together here, is because it's time to do something about this.
So if you consolidate under an income-based program, it really is established on, what you can pay. So you're going to get out of default. You're not going to have your wages garnished, and you're not going to get a tax set-off. When that's really what you want to stay away from.
Now, and oftentimes with the income-based repayment program, you're not going to have to pay anything. I'm actually not paying anything on my government loans
That's
right
correct.
now.
What they do is it's 150% of the poverty line in your state. Typically, it's averages around 12,000, so 150% of that would be around 18,000. It's above that point. The income above that is considered disposable income. And what they do is they're allowed to take up in the different plans. It ranges from 10 to 15%
Okay.
of your disposable income is able to be your yearly payment. So you would take whatever disposable income you had, and you would divide it by. You would take 10% of that, and then you would divide it by the number of months in a year, and that would be your monthly payment. Now,
This is after consolidation.
correct.
So if you haven't consolidated,
Then
Does
you're-
that-
no, you're-
it
no,
just
you're-
won't work at all?
No, you have to pay whatever the
You have
loans
to-
are.
okay.
That's the big advantage of consolidating. So if you make $22,000 a year, you have to pay 10% of 4,000,
Okay.
rough numbers, over the year. Which is $400 divided by 12. It's approximately, $33 a month.
But you're still paying interest, or interest is still accruing on that debt. So are you making any real headway?
Well, yes and no. What happens is it depends on your end game. What will happen is at the end of these plans, there is a forgiveness. So essentially, as long as you continue to pay as you earn, and even if you were to start to make more money, depends on how much loan debt you have. But if you're someone like me that has 90,000 or any range in there, what will happen is all that extra accrued interest, unless you're able to make a lot of money to pay it off, will be forgiven. So
At the end
at
of
the end.
which is either 20 or 25 years,
Yes.
depending on which plan you have.
Correct. And I mean, even if they made it $1 million, even if my interest became 300%, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to pay these things off. I have these loans for 20 years regardless.
So there's some value, though, in maintaining payments over a period of time.
And your credit improves.
Yeah, you're not delinquent. And after 90 days, if you're 90 days delinquent, they start reporting you to the credit bureaus. So I mean, like I said, the way I looked at it, I'm going to be making this payment for 20 years regardless. I'm not going to, at my interest rate at 3.4%, and at $400 a month, I'm just going to let that pay. I'm not going to pay that off ahead of time. It's a very low interest rate, and I'm just factor that in, as my expenses basically.
Right.
So, if I'm in an income-based plan and I pay $20 or $30, when I'm making no money, and
Versus
then at
$0.
the end of my loan, I have at the end of 20 years, I have 30,000 left over because I got jacked. Even
All
if
that
I
interest.
it doesn't matter.
So they're just going to write that all off anyway.
It's gone. So it doesn't matter. And then if I do get to the point where I start to make a tremendous amount of money, then what happens is it actually has the reverse effect in terms of now you're paying it off at an accelerated rate, and the interest now is going to accrue less. So
Because you've caught up and you're working on your principal.
Yeah.
So-
So it works out to be the same. One of the calculations that we let people know when they call into us is, and the software that we use actually back ends into the Department of Education's website. Maybe not back ends, but basically lays on top links, and we'll pull up the loans. You can do all this yourself.
Yourself, yes.
But what we're able to do is, it's a web app that'll basically pull all the information and put it in one quick little area for us. And one of the things we do is we'll let them know what their principal and interest will be over the life of the loan, depending on the program they choose. Now, the income contingent programs are an estimate. We use the Department of Education's estimate calculator.
Yeah,
to tell
because
you
they
that.
have that right on the site, so you can look at it.
Yeah, so that's what. But we'll let them know where they stand, according to these programs, and you can make a decision, accordingly.
How easy or difficult is it to set this up?
Well, as we've spoken before, to set up, are you talking about our software, or even just to do it through the Department of Education? Because
I'm talking about doing it through the Department of Education. If you're an individual that has a loan, do you really want to be doing this on your own? Now, I know your answer is no.
Right.
You've got a service, obviously, but how
But
long
not
did it take
everybody
you to figure this
qualifies
out?
either.
Well, it doesn't tell you. I mean, it was a trial. I mean, they tell you a whole bunch of standards. It's lots of information, as we spoke about before. But there is no, before you actually get into the process, I haven't found anything. I'd say that there is anything out there, but I haven't seen anything that really prepares you for it. So basically, you get stuck you log on to the government website, and you're kind of, once you start the process, they just kind of throw you right into it. Okay, you need this, this, and this. And what happens is you get delayed by not filling it out properly.
So what does your service cost?
Our service ranges from anywhere, like I said, we have a flat rate, but we break it up. And we have a program in place that's a hardship program. Our service runs everywhere from $299 up to $699.
That's really pretty reasonable, considering I've talked to a lot of different companies, and they're usually charging 10% of your debt.
Right. Well, I talked to a couple too. That's what made me.
I actually turned in a whole page off the internet over stuff like that. I just called up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and turned them all in. I gave them the link to this, and I had went to a lot of them individually. So we only have a couple minutes left. What else do you want to let the people know?
Well, like I said, I guess one of the other things, just briefly, is I think what's important to know is, maybe some listeners, is there are two other ways to cancel your student loans.
Okay.
Besides having issues with the school that you went to, which is just bad luck and unfortunate, I would guess.
Right.
One is if you are disabled, If you are permanently disabled through, through social, and you claim Social Security through it, actually the requirements are either that you've been on permanent disability for 5 years, or you will be on for 5 years or more. If you qualify to either one of those, you may qualify to
Have your loans.
to have your loans canceled again. So that's I have friends that have gotten cancer. We actually have a client who has colon cancer, and we'd spoken with her and advised her of this option. So she actually
Well,
may be
that works
going
out
down
much
this
better
route.
than the private loans as well, too. So now we're going to have you back. We're going to talk about some private loans, which I know you don't take care of that, but we want to talk a little bit about different things, different options that you can do there. Go ahead and give them your phone number and website one more time, and please give Todd a call, his company a call, and they'll answer any questions you have. Go to the website. He has some frequently asked questions there.
Sure, it's 954-425-6105. And like I said, we picked this name so it was easy to remember. We Fix Your Student Loans.
.com.
.com.
So, and with that, we're going to close for this evening. Next week, we'll be back with Jorge Estomba. And have a good evening and good night.
You have been listening to We Are the People with social advocates Tracy Marks and Jorge Estamba, who every week bring to the light the needs and changes in our current system. Tune in every Monday night at 7 p.m. on wearethepeople.tv and participate in the conversation in the chat room or call 888-565-1470. Tune in next Monday for more information and facts. And Tracy and Jorge remind you to stay aware of your surroundings and challenges at all times.